out of Washington from House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes. He announced earlier that communications of Trump transition officials and possibly even the president himself may have been monitored by the Obama administration after the election. We're joined now by Chief White House correspondent John Roberts with more. John.
Kimberly, good afternoon to you. You know, the president had promised us last week that more was going to come on his claims that he was being wiretapped or in some other way surveilled, or at least people at Trump Tower were. We don't know if this is what the president was talking about, but it certainly would seem to fit along the lines of that narrative. When the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes came out today and said that he has been told, and it appeared to come from people who had come forward individually and not from some particular organization, that there was incidental collection of U.S. citizens who were associated with the Trump campaign. Now, what we can assume that this is, because he didn't really lay it out, is that the NSA, the FBI, or other intelligence agencies were listening in to conversations with foreigners who were allowed to be surveilled under the terms of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, and that people from the Trump campaign may have been on the other end of the telephone, and then they were collected along with the intelligence from the foreign national that was being surveilled. Again, Nunes didn't lay it out for us like that, but that's probably what it was, because that's the way that the intelligence community operates. And Nunes did say that he believed that this was under the auspices of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. He said that was all legal. He also pointed out that it wasn't associated with any kind of investigation into Russia or any kind of criminal investigation. So why is this troubling? Well, Nunes pointed out that the people who were surveilled on the other end of the line, whatever it was, a telephone line or some other form of conversation, who were American citizens, were, quote, unmasked. That means that unlike the provisions of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, where the identities of American citizens are supposed to be protected and kept absolutely secret, they were unmasked. Their names were published in an intelligence product. And you'll remember that Michael Flynn's name actually was made public. So he thought that it was important enough that he just about dropped everything on the Hill, save talking to the House Speaker and the head of the CIA and the NSA, came down here in person to brief the president on it. I asked him specifically, I said, does this vindicate in any other way that, or at least give corroboration to what the president suggested happened when he tweeted out from Mar-a-Lago a few days after his address to a joint session of Congress that he was being wiretapped and in any other way surveilled. He said, possibly. Listen what else I asked the chairman right here. Knew that there was some incidental collection because Lieutenant General Michael Flynn was caught up talking with Sergei Kislyak. Right. Does this go beyond that, and does this qualify as the sort of wiretapping that the president was tweeting?
Well, it definitely goes beyond what happened to General Flynn. Now, of course, we don't actually know yet officially what happened to General Flynn. We just know that his name leaked out, but we don't know how it was picked up yet.
Does this suggest the president was correct in what he tweeted?
It is possible.
And shortly after that, the president had what's called a pool spray as he was meeting with members of the Congressional Black Caucus. He said to some degree, Kimberly, he does feel vindicated by what Chairman Nunes told us all this afternoon. And, of course, Nunes will continue to look into this.
All right, excellent. Thanks, John. We're going to take you right now to a live presser that's taking place in the Capitol with Representative Adam Schiff.
That surveillance was anything but lawful. And what people need to understand about foreign intelligence gathering and incidental collection is, if we are listening to two foreign spies, for example, talking to each other on foreign soil, or two representatives of a foreign government, and they mention a U.S. person, that is incidental collection. It doesn't necessarily mean there is a call from a foreign party to a U.S. person. Even the mention of a U.S. person is incidental collection, and that name would be masked. If there is a call with a U.S. person, or U.S. person identities are involved at all, those names are masked. But there are proper procedures for unmasking a name. When it is necessary for the intelligence agencies to understand the significance of the intercept, and they cannot do that when the names are masked, you can properly unmask the name. The chairman has provided no evidence that any names that were unmasked improperly. And of course, without the ability for the committee to look at the intercepts, we're not in a position to evaluate whether the procedures were followed or were not followed. Moreover, as I understand from my conversation with the chairman, most of the names in the intercepts were in fact masked. And the chairman's concern was that he could still figure out the identities of some of the parties, even though the names were masked. Well, that doesn't mean that the masking was improper. And so, again, it's impossible to evaluate whether there's any there in terms of these intercepts without the committee being able to look at them. And thus far, the chair has not provided this evidence to the committee. So this is deeply troubling along many levels. But among the most significant levels is it really impedes our ability to do this investigation the way we should. I've been part of investigations that were conducted properly when the House Intelligence Committee investigated Benghazi, and I've been part of investigations that were not, such as the Benghazi Select Committee. It was my hope that our investigation could be conducted properly. It's still my hope that this investigation should be conducted properly, but unfortunately the actions of the chair throw that very much in doubt, and I'd be happy to respond to your questions. Yes?
Two questions. One, what is the Democrats' next step here? Are you planning on pulling out of this investigation the way that you did during the Benghazi inquiry? And two, did Chairman Nunes reveal any classified information today by his disclosures to the press?
Well, on the first point, we actually stayed on the Benghazi Select Committee, though we knew from the outset that it was essentially going to be a political instrument to tear down Secretary Clinton's numbers. And of course, we will have to analyze what this development means. I do think that if there is any chance remaining for us to conduct this investigation, we need to do it. As I said earlier in the week, we could do a tremendous service to the country if we're able to do a credible investigation and at the end of the day provide a report to the American people that has Democrats and Republicans on the same page. But if you have a chairman who is interacting with the White House and sharing information with the White House when people around the White House are the subject of the investigation and doing so before sharing it with the committee, it throws a profound doubt over whether that can be done credibly.
Did Chairman Nunes reveal any classified information today?
Well, it's certainly inappropriate for us to be discussing whether specific people were the subject of collection or incidental collection to any degree that can divulge who the targets of that surveillance may be. So I'm not prepared to say that what the chairman said was classified or unclassified. I can say that it is beyond irregular to receive any evidence that's within the scope of an investigation. And clearly, if the chairman is right about the content here, it's within the scope of the issues we're looking at about whether masking procedures are followed and whether things are being leaked. And I would say that the most profound concern here I have is that these actions simply raise enormous doubt about whether the committee can do its work. And I think that more than anything else I've seen, this makes the most profound case for the formation of an independent commission.
Mr.
Yes.
To follow up on this question, on Monday we heard quite a bit about, from several committee members, about improper unmasking of individuals who were collected in warranted surveillance. What is the fundamental difference between what the chairman did today and what the complaints were on Monday?
Well, first of all, with respect to what we were discussing on Monday, we could actually discuss concrete things. We could, but if there were a specific instance where there was an unmasking that we were concerned about, we could ask the questions about it. Here we have no information about who was masked or who was unmasked, and indeed, based on what the chairman told me, the names were masked apart from a single name, which wasn't necessarily anyone connected with the Trump organization. The concern the chair raised with me was that the names that were masked, he believed, were associated with the president or his associates.
Did he unmask the president today?
I don't know. Again, this is the problem. This is the precise problem when the information is not shared with the committee itself. We will be seeking this information. We will be evaluating it, and once we've had a chance to review it, I will issue a statement about what I think it says and what I think it doesn't say. But here we're operating on hearsay, and this is simply not a way to conduct an investigation. Yes.
On that point, had the committee been previously briefed about intercepts in general, or had you had any background knowledge about these intercepts? You say you don't have these intercepts, but were you aware of these intercepts? Do members of the committee have information about them?
Well, it's impossible to know because we don't know what intercepts the chairman is referring to. So, again, my assumption from what the chair said is that these are intercepts that we don't have. But he also said this doesn't relate to the Russia investigation. So if it doesn't relate to the Russia investigation, if they were lawfully conducted, and he said there's no reason to believe they weren't, then we wouldn't have them as a part of the investigation. Now, we have made a request of the intelligence agencies for information about their masking procedures. If indeed it's within the scope of our request, then it's information we should be getting. And if that's true, and I think the chairman indicated he thought that the information he'd received is within the scope of what we've asked for, then it's a significant question that if this is within the information we've asked for that the agencies are going to be delivering to us later this week, then why make the statement to the press before we have it? It just begs more questions, frankly, than it answers. Yes.
Is there any reason to believe, I know we discussed briefly the president, but just to kind of clarify, is there any reason to believe that the president or members of his family were people present in these documents?
Again, you would have to ask the chairman because he's the only one on the committee that I'm aware of that's been able to see this.
Did he express that to you? Did he say, I think these people are involved?
I don't want to characterize precisely what the chair said. And I think if you look at what he has said publicly, it's not very clear because he's used words like may have been or it might be. And how can we evaluate the strength of that information? We just can't. And again, this just underscores why this is not how you conduct an investigation. You don't take information that the committee hasn't seen and present it orally to the press and to the White House before the committee has a chance to vet whether it's even significant. Yes.
What assurances did you receive from Chairman Nunes that the committee can move forward in bipartisan?
I'm sorry?
What assurances did you receive from Chairman Nunes that the committee can move forward in bipartisan?
Well, I have to say I expressed my grave concerns about how this was handled. And I'm not sure that at this point we're likely to get those kind of assurances. Certainly, we're going to have a much more lengthy discussion of this when we meet as a committee. But it casts quite a profound cloud over our ability to do our work. And I do think that the concern over Russian intervention in our election is one that permeates the Congress, and it's a concern that Democrats have, and it's a concern that Republicans have. And I have to think that most of the members of the House want a bipartisan investigation to be done. But this is not the way to do it. Yes?
Did Chairman Nunes tell you how or where or in what way he viewed these documents or was alerted to their existence? And also, you've said that you're gravely concerned and you criticize the chairman right now, but are you pursuing any sort of more formal censuring of him in light of what happened?
This is not a situation, I think, where you can pursue something like that. We still have a very important job to do even apart from this investigation. But right now, the country is counting on us because in the House of Representatives, we're the only investigation there is. If we don't do it, no one is going to do it. Now, perhaps the White House would like it that way. But the American people, I think, want there to be a credible investigation. And if we're not going to conduct it, then we need to have an independent commission do it. And if the chairman is going to continue to go to the White House rather than his own committee, there's no way we can conduct this investigation.
And did he tell you how or where or what led to him being able to do
I don't have a lot of details on it. The most I think he was able to say is that it was shared with him alone. So it doesn't appear to have been shared even with the other Republican members of his committee. And so all of us are in the dark. And that makes what the chairman did today all the more extraordinary. Yes.
Do you have any concerns about the way in which he got this information or who it might have come from? He said he doesn't have the documents in his possession, but he knows where they are.
Well, obviously there are a lot of questions. I mean, if this came from people within the intelligence community, then you're looking at sort of a channel for a leak to the press, which raises a whole nother category of concerns. If this is within the intelligence community, it ought to be shared with us by the intelligence community. I don't know if that's the source of it.
You said he also went and called the NSA, the CIA, and I think the FBI.
You'd have to ask the chairman. Again, we have no idea where these documents came from, whether they even show what they purport to show. But even if they do on the basis of what the chairman said, the underlying fact is still the same. There's no evidence to support the president's contention that he was wiretapped by his predecessor. So I'm not sure what the point of this extraordinary process is. And I have to hope that this is not part of a broader campaign by the White House aimed to deflect from the director's testimony earlier this week. But again, not having seen the documents, not having the chairman share those documents with either Democrats or Republicans on the committee, there's simply no way for us to evaluate.
Do you have any idea of how many names were in here, masked or unmasked?
I have no idea.
Dozens?
There's no way for us to know. Yes.
It seems like that the decision about an independent commission is in the hands of Paul Ryan. Have you talked to him about that, and do you have any plans to do so?
I certainly intend to do so. The request has been made by our minority leader, as well as the entire membership of the Democratic membership of the House of Representatives in the form of sponsorship of legislation by my colleague Eric Swalwell and Elijah Cummings. So we have certainly made it clear now for many weeks that we ought to follow the model we did after 9/11, where we do an investigation through our intelligence committees, but we also have a truly independent commission. And there are two reasons why I think the commission now is more essential than ever. The first is that a commission would have a dedicated staff and resources focused solely on this issue. An investigation of this magnitude really justifies that kind of investment. But second, it takes it completely out of the political realm. And today's events show why that is just so essential. A commission like the 9/11 Commission wouldn't have one of its chairs go to the White House when it obtained new information. We just cannot continue along that kind of a path. So I think more than anything else, today's events have underscored the imperative of an independent commission.
Did he tell you?
Yes.
Did the chairman give you any indication why he decided to go to the White House before he came to you with any information?
No, and that's a good question for the chairman. I certainly did express my concern that that is simply not a way to conduct a credible investigation. Thank you.
What did he say to you? Responsive?
Did he tell you when you'll get to see that?
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to take a listen back to Representative Nunes and the comments that he made earlier.
The reports that I was able to see did not have anything to do with Russia or the Russia investigation. I think some of it seems to be inappropriate. What I've read seems to me to be some level of surveillance activity, perhaps legal, but I don't know that it's right, and I don't know that the American people would be comfortable with what I've read. But let us get all the reports.
The president was correct in what he tweeted?
It is possible. I think the president is concerned, and he should be. I think he'd like to see these reports.